Okay, so that last video that was recorded the other night, and I faded into the darkness, and that was essentially what the journey was. It was it was going to the darkest. Like I said, for crevices in the deepest, darkest corners of the recesses of the mind and the soul, into inner space and taking the dive. Um, Robert created this incredible picture. Was actually the very first painting that really kind of activated me in I guess the beginning of 2013, and it was this painting, and I wish I could insert it here, but I'll feature it on a video coming right after this. When I'll show some of the other pieces of art that have come into play here, but it was called The Big Change, and it had a picture of a man taking a leap from a burning city, and the whole it was just like, I don't know, 9/11 Armageddon, you call it what, and it's just a city on fire, and his whole body is just ravaged, and his clothes shredded and bloody and beaten up and chewed up and spit out kind of guy, and there's people chasing him, and it's just the whole, it's the Matrix, okay, and then half of his body is burnt off, kind of decimated, and then the other half of his body is completely purified, clean. Where I've got the nice white shirt, and he's heading toward this into space. It looks like he's going into the cosmos, and it's the Phoenix constellation, and it's like there's a leap of faith that he's going from this, well, what he seems was his stable ground, and yet that earth, that old way of life, is crumbling. The old business self. Being caught up in the busyness, that's what I call business. I don't do business anymore. I used to. My whole life was doing business for 44 years. Well, actually 42, because I got touched and lit by this whole experience around 2010, and I started digging into this etheric world that just doesn't make any sense. But that was the world I chose to investigate. Excuse the the drill bits that are coming around there. Anyways, so yeah, that became the catalyzing time, which brought this whole experience to light, to expose, to be exposed, and it was after the as I call it, the shipwreck. There's no other way to describe it other than that. Once it came to completion, the journey, as I said, took over 5 years period, but it was about 3.5 years accumulative, and we've been picking up for the last couple months, reunited, if you will, after the artist took a good 18-20 month hiatus, pull away, because he had to recalibrate and process, and I had to heal and process it myself in my own way. And that's when it took me to the darkness. So this aptly, video that we just featured before, that took us to this dark place where that's when you have to go to the dark place. You have to go into this abyss, which you think is oh my God, it's this, but that's where you're reborn. That's where you're refined from the ashes. That's where the treasures are, and it's this place where it's dark and I don't know what's out there. It's like, well, you have to learn faith and which is trust in my book, in the knowingness that there is something out there bigger than you, and only the ones who have actually experienced it, the ones who cross over near-death experiences, out-of-body experiences, transcendental meditation, vipassana meditation, all these different meditations in deep contemplative prayer, ayahuasca, taking their drugs, which is a force, to force and induce this type of state of higher consciousness, visionary exploration. It is not recommended because it's clouded by the mind's fields, and you're not in your true essence of your heart core, of where the true creativity. And of course, there's a lot of famous musicians, like Jim Morrison, for example, okay, and so many others that have all, they go into this high and they become this, again, this conduit and this transceiver, receiver of creative works, and it is their higher self, but it's a scary place, can be, because it pulls out your deepest emotions and your deepest wounds too, and that's essentially what this has done. And the when the artist when I connected to the artist, I didn't really, I knew it was going to be an exploration and an integration of nature's energy into this dynamic, and so I knew that from the very get go when I arrived in Idaho at this campground where Rob was pursuing his field of prosperity at the time, which was vacuum sales, which had been 27 years his fallback, but it's not who he is. He's an artist, and so when a person goes into a field for long enough, and if you've been through the ringer long enough, as Rob's had dozens, 60 or whatever, dozens and dozens and dozens of jobs and different careers that he's attempted in his lifetime, which is more than most living souls have experienced in one lifetime. It's like Rob lived 50 lifetimes in one. That's what made his journey such an evolved and involved one, and also a very painful one too, to a degree, because it's like, he couldn't really live out what he wanted to be, which was an artist, because that's who he is.